Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Cybersecurity Recruiter podcast. Today, I'm joined by Grace Rauth. How you doing?
Great. How are you? Thank you so much for having me.
No, it's nice to see you again. And here's for everyone listening, me and Grace have just been complaining about hot weather, and there'll be certain people in certain parts of the world thinking, what are we on about? Especially people from the UK, like they probably would never understand someone complaining about hot weather because we don't get much of it in London and in the UK. But we're gunning for the winter, Grace, aren't we, me and you?
Oh, absolutely. I cannot take another 90-degree day.
The problem I was just saying before we started, I only recruit in the US, but at the minute I'm doing it from Dubai, and it's not too bad here because it's like totally geared up for like extreme heat. There's air conditioning everywhere and pretty much every apartment has it as standard. But in the UK, when the hot weather hits, apart from some really large commercial buildings, like nowhere really has air conditioning. So when the heat kicks in the UK, you can't sleep at night, or people have got kids. Or I can remember in the old days coming into a recruitment agency office and no one had slept the night before because it was too hot and stuff like that. So at least we're at the minute, we're geared up for the heat. But yeah, the air conditioning's a lifesaver.
It absolutely is. I will say I have such an old house that it's not as effective, but I'm just thankful I have anything, really.
Okay. All right, Grace. Look, I'm looking forward to this show. I know you've been up to some really interesting stuff in relation to kind of people and hiring and culture and getting the most out of different team members. So it's going to be an interesting chat. I'm just going to do you a bit of an intro for the listeners that don't know you. If I get anything wrong, feel free to shout at me or correct me. But Grace Rauth started out as HR specialist. You transitioned into a L&D specialist, doing some people-related roles. You were at Chronosphere Labs for almost 5 years. And you're currently the Global Learning and Development Manager for Chronosphere.
I was lucky to have so many different experiences being in early stage startups, and I got so much exposure wearing all of the hats I possibly could fit while fast scaling in those companies.
Yeah, cool. I think if you've done that startup experience early on in your career, you've done it the right way around. Because if people have only been in huge companies for a long time, then they go to a startup, it can often be a bit of a shock to the system. But if you've grown up or come through in that startup world, you've had to wear many hats, you've probably had to do 3 or 4 people's jobs as one person, and you get used to dealing with quite a lot quite quickly, don't you?
Honestly, I like it that way. I like being challenged, so I'd rather be just constantly moving and moving fast because that's exciting to me. I do find that those people coming from large companies are in a bit of a shell shock coming into a startup because they had teams and everyone was specialized, and you don't have to do that like nitty gritty admin IC work. Like it's all spelled out for you. So that really did lend a hand to me joining startups really early in my career because I was able to just put on my hat. I'm here ready to go and build the company.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that skill set's becoming more and more valuable. Basically, people in general being adaptable. In the larger companies, you've got a lot of departmental structure, and sometimes things can be really siloed off, which might make people feel a bit more comfortable. But I think overall for career growth and career progression, like especially because things seem to be changing so much at the minute with AI, I think anyone that is adaptable and can pick new things up quick and can adapt to new environments, that skill set is going to play into the hands of the future.
100%. And it's really interesting because I have a tech background. So like things are always changing in tech. You have to stay up on the skills. And now everyone's experiencing that with AI. You have to grow your skill set and learn, how do I use ChatGPT to do a prompt to make my work more efficient? And it's really interesting to see everyone in that boat of trying to learn something very quickly rather than just being in tech and it's expected of you.
Yeah, no, definitely. It just changes so much. I was watching this recruitment-related podcast and it was talking about recruitment agencies in 5 years' time. And this host basically went, no one knows what it's going to be like in 5 years' time. We might all be doing something. It's moving so fast at the minute. Company I'm hiring for at the minute, we're hiring pen testers, but they're totally hands-off because they're running and managing an AI-enabled autonomous tool. Yes, the pen testing knowledge is important, but the communication piece is taking absolutely center stage because these pen testers don't need to do as much pen testing, but they need to be able to communicate to the end client what the tool's doing because they're spending quite a lot of money on it. So it's, wow, like that's such a huge transition from a traditional security engineer or a traditional pen tester, even 3 or 4 years ago.
We're even seeing this with software engineering. And even in my company, we're encouraging our software engineers to use AI, make your job easier. And that opens the door for them to up-level their skills in other areas. Like you said, communication. Traditionally, like we have PMs to help handle that connection between the two. But right now, we're expecting our software engineers to learn AI, help manage your job effectively. And then you have to talk about it, right? Because you have to validate that was correct and really think about, why are we doing this? Does this make sense? And is this helping advance our goals?
Yeah, and it's nice to hear you say that, Grace, as well, because I know you've done a lot of hiring over the years. And
Too
for
much.
me, yeah, when you're doing a lot of hiring, and I've heard other recruiters say, I think sometimes there's a conception for people on the market that we don't want to see AI. If you're using AI really well and you can articulate what's going on, and maybe you use it to make your resume better, as long as everything on there's the truth still, like we actually do want to see people embracing it and using it and being able to adopt it really well. I think sometimes people out there listening might think, oh, recruiters, I need to use AI but pretend to have it. Like, we understand this is the way it's going. Like, we understand everyone's got to get on board. So, yeah.
Yeah, and honestly, like just trying to teach people to what prompts do you use to get the best answer, and then validating that and making sure that the response is human in a way, because I even find using it, I have an issue with blank pages. So when I start a session that I'm building or a project that I'm building, I will consult with ChatGPT and say, hey, I don't really know how to approach this. Like, where would you start? And it gives you a place to start, but it's ultimately how you continue that project and use your expertise with it.
Yeah, it gives you a framework, but you always need to. It's not great for when I do a post, like I'll do a post about this episode when we release it on Spotify and YouTube, and I'll get ChatGPT to give me a framework. But it's true what you said. It's so important that you read it back and validate it, because it does just go off track. Some things you're like, hang on, that doesn't make sense. You're saying it from the wrong point of view. You do need to know what's going on. I've asked it questions about margins on contractors and stuff like that before, and unless you understand how it all works, like it can. You still need to understand what's going on, but it just makes life so much easier as long as you're willing to check and validate, because otherwise you can look really silly really quick.
Oh, especially in HR, I find it's really interesting because sometimes the AI will just make up laws. So if you're trying to do research and determine, okay, what is the law in X country, it'll just make it up and you have to fact check it. You run the risk of it being incorrect.
Yeah, I don't know why it does that. Like, why doesn't you just say, I think it's this, but I'm not 100%?
It's what we teach our employees to do. If you're not sure, don't make it up. Just tell me.
Exactly, yeah. Maybe as time goes on, it will get better at that, obviously with machine learning and stuff like that. So, yeah, but cool. But Grace, I know I did you an intro, but I always start with, what's a day in the life like for Grace at the minute? What do you get up to? What goes down? What's going on for you right now? Tell us what you get up to.
Honestly, in any role, no day is the same. It's really entirely dependent on what the business is asking of me. So sometimes a issue will come up and it's, okay, immediately we have to do a training on this. And obviously, I keep that lightweight because of the 70-20-10 principle. 70% of your learning comes from what you're doing in your day-to-day. So, like, I'm not heavily involved in that. I will provide tools for that to help enable. But 20% comes from learning from your peers. So it's just your conversations that you're having. And in a remote environment, we try to enable that as much as possible with groups. And then 10% is where I specialize, which is that formalized training. And I try to make it as approachable as possible. So I make it friendly. I'm not going to throw someone in a 3-hour multi-day training. That's just not realistic for startups. It takes way too much time out of their day today with all of the context switching we're doing. And I have context switching all day too.
Yeah, no, cool. When people are learning and training, is there anything that people do that really helps them, or is there anything that people do that they shouldn't do? Like, what makes an optimal environment that really helps the stuff you're implementing? Like, how does that really help someone's career growth? Like, an ideal person do any like insights business?
Asking questions, being curious. Like, you really want to ask, why are we doing this? What is the goal in this training? How can I apply this training in my day-to-day? If you take 1 or 2 things out of my training and immediately apply it to your workday, it's going to help you be more efficient. And ultimately, that's my goal as a learning and development manager. I want you to take something out of my training. Be curious. Ask questions. Keep an open mind. I do find that people who are more skeptical of training once they see others start enabling that behavior that I'm trying to train to change, they sometimes become my strongest advocates. And then I grow this culture of learning, and I see that they're constantly showing up to trainings and engaging with the material and even sharing resources that they find helpful.
Yeah, cool. Do you know what? I can relate to that from different training I've done with people, because when people ask you a smart or an intelligent question, it shows that they've listened, it shows that they care. And then when I've been training someone, it gives me a mental feedback loop to go, hang on, this person actually cares, they're listening, they're taking on board. So then that motivates me to try and provide them with even more learnings and knowledge and gains and stuff like that. So it's almost like this positive feedback loop. I suppose what we're describing is really good communication, really, because if you can demonstrate through questions that you're listening, the other person that's helping you is probably by human nature just going to want to help you more and do a better job for you.
Absolutely. And if you are exhibiting that communication, that says to me that you're listening to me, and that makes me want to continue teaching you. It absolutely is a feedback loop. It's just a constant cycle of, okay, we're going to do this training, ask good questions that will actually help you, and then we're going to keep building those skills.
Yeah, and definitely. And I think I mentioned this on the pod before, but listening really well and active listening skills, it sounds simple, but it's not. If you listen to someone really well, I think not everyone does that. Like, I had to learn it quite quickly when I started the pod, because if I don't really listen to what every guest is saying, I'm not going to be able to host a podcast, because I'm not going to be able to ask any follow-up questions. So those active listening skills, if you can refine that skill set, it's really valuable in terms of career progression and building relationships.
Honestly, it's the top skill, I would say. If you're struggling with active listening, that's the most important thing you can do. Because if you're not listening to the other person, and this can be at any level, if you're C-suite, if you're an individual contributor, then you're just thinking about what you're going to say next, and you're not actively taking in, like, what is this person actually asking of me, rather than what I expect them to ask of me. And that can just cause tension, confusion, miscommunication. It's a skill that I've had to build up. Like, I just want to help people, and I sometimes dive in a little bit too quickly. But I've found that when I stop, when I pause, and I actually just listen to what the other person is saying, it really does help build that relationship. And then that just compounds over time.
Yeah, definitely. And do you know what, Grace? It's so important, because I've had it before. Like, even people that really, like CEOs, founders, where they've approached me to do some hiring for them. And what I'm trying to get at there, there's no correlation to, sometimes people can be really high up, I've found, and their listening skills aren't. Like, I've had some founders, they've come on and we're talking about partnering together on some hiring. And I can see they're like looking over there, looking down at their phone, and I'm like, man, do I want to work with it? It's always, you feel a bit like, I don't think I'm easily offended, but I can remember at the time when I've had it, I'm like, God, I don't feel very important. I don't feel very special here.
Not at all.
And it doesn't, no. And like, I think sometimes as well, like, being aware of how you're making the other person feel. Ultimately, I think that's the bulk of what everything's about. If you can make someone feel pretty good when they're communicating with you or when they're around you, I think generally speaking, things are going to go pretty well, because that's ultimately what we're all doing it for. If it's a pay rise, it's because we want to be happy, or if it's a promotion, it's because we want to make our families and ourselves happy. It's all related to happiness. Yeah, I think just being aware of these things, because it matters.
Absolutely. And I've had experiences like that too. And it really does turn you off in the situation. You're immediately, I could say literally anything right now, and I think you would just nod your head yes or no. And it does lend itself at a certain level at C-suite. Yes, they do have to be a bit more direct, and like, they're constantly context switching. But putting in that little extra effort to actually listen, to not be checking Slack while you're on another meeting. Because I see that more than anything. Even in my trainings, like, I'll have to call out people sometimes, because it's the expectation to be connected. And when you're remote, like, it just feels like you have to respond now. But when you do that, you're damaging the relationship with the other person that is trying to have a conversation with you.
You are. And even if the other person says it doesn't matter, it really does. Like, it definitely does. And you're right, Grace, because in this world, it's like, I've just dived into another window here, but if I open my other window, I've got email, there's Slack there, there's LinkedIn there.
Oh, you don't want to
there.
see my tabs. I have
Yeah,
100 tabs open.
Yeah, this is so easy to distracted. Even internally, when my team, oh Tom, I've messaged, and I'm like, you've messaged, like where was it? Was it WhatsApp? Was it Signal? Was it Telegram? Was it Slack? Email inboxes? And it's so easy to get distracted, and then you can almost create a habit of being distracted. So I think you've got to be quite intentional about it these days. If you can be a fantastic active listener, I think you can give yourself a bit of an edge and a bit of a USP, because I just don't think everyone is anymore.
Oh, no, not at all. Especially like in this age of social media, everything's 15-second clips. Attention is so low. And this is actually why I designed my training the way I did. Your brain can't handle 3 hours of someone talking at you. That's just not interactive. No one's going to walk away with any kind of insight from that. They're just going to end the meeting and be like, dear God, I need to not listen to people for a week. That's honestly how I feel going into trainings like that. So having bite-sized content and meeting people where they're at has really helped me have people listen to me, but also walk away with actual information that they can use.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think as well, it's like attention's just going, like you said, it's just everything's in shorts and we're almost playing, and it's probably just going to get worse as time goes on, because everything is in shorts. It's like when I come to do these, this is like a real opportunity for me to slow down, because I was on calls before all this, I've got calls after, I've got a little break, but just to take an hour out, just to have a really good conversation. Like after I've done them, I'm always so happy I've done them. It just makes you realize all of us, like to a certain extent, we're all guilty. We just all want everything yesterday, don't we? Like, or instantly.
Yeah, it's like when you send a Slack and you don't say, hi, how are you? It's just, I need this now.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone's direct. We live in that very instantaneous culture of social. I think social media's done to us all. It's great. We can do these podcasts with each other on the other side of the world, but it's got its downfalls.
Pros and cons to everything.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. So we were talking about Enneagram just before we hit record, and I know when we initially spoke, when was that? Was it about 2 or 3 months ago? It was a while ago, wasn't it?
It was back in July.
Yeah, I think I'd been on holiday to France, and I was either just going or I'd just got back. But yeah, we were talking at the time, and it sounded pretty cool, the project. So I'll let you tell the listeners what it's all about and how it can benefit people.
Absolutely. So as an L&D manager, I'm always drawn to tools that can help people better understand one another and themselves more deeply. Enneagram stood out to me rather than other assessments because it's really about motivation and not behavior or like measuring how good you are at something. It's not about labeling people. It's about understanding what drives us. So when teams understand each other's core motivation, collaboration gets easier, especially in this remote environment where it's hard to understand why people are doing something a certain way. So it helps you better approach how you communicate, how you might approach conflict. Some people might prefer more stability and be cautious with big changes. Others are interested in challenging and they might dive right in. But when you know each other, you can better communicate, it reduces tension, and you get more aligned quickly. And being a remote company and trying to deal with all of the challenges that come with that, this tool is very helpful for that.
Cool. So basically, it's telling me what someone's why is and what drives them and what's going to get them stimulated. What are different examples of stuff that comes out, Grace? And can you give us any?
Sure, absolutely. It measures the whole of a person. So it'll measure, are you motivated by helping people, or are you maybe motivated by driving change? And those different factors really affect how you show up at work. And I've found that it's not about putting people in boxes. It really shows you the patterns that people fall into under stress and under pressure so that you can be aware of that. So it's driving that self-awareness so you can better understand yourself, and then giving teams common language to talk about that in a very non-judgmental way. So it's, oh, you're a 2, you are motivated by helping others, but sometimes that can be a downfall and you don't think about what you want in the scenario, and you're really driven by helping others around you at the detriment of yourself. So what are some skills we can work on based off of that? Before you say yes to everything, why are you saying yes to this? Is this actually going to move the goalpost for you? And I'm speaking from experience here. I was rated a 2, and it really did give me a tool book to go through and be like, okay, I am motivated in this way. Why am I motivated in this way? How can I develop my other areas so that I can be a more well-rounded person when I show up to work?
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I tell you what else I bet it's interesting for is you said it helps people understand what drives them, if they like helping people or not. You see it a lot in the security world, and you see it a lot in the recruitment world as well, where just because someone's a great individual contributor, sometimes the company just goes, you're a top security engineer or you're a top recruiter, so you can be the manager. And it's like, often those people don't always make the best managers, and so many people go into
It's a completely different skill set. The biggest thing that I found seeing ICs go to managers and then I'm having a conversation with them, like, how's it going? The thing that they tell me that's surprising is, oh, I didn't realize how much I had to deal with people. And we laugh about that for a second. And then we talk about what that means. And they say, oh, like, I didn't realize I had to deal with people's personal situations. Like, I had one manager that had to deal with a leave of absence for their mother that was sick. And they're like, I didn't realize I had to be empathetic in that way. And I started laughing because it's like, of course you do. You have to be a person. That is the biggest shock for ICs going into a manager position, and that across engineering, of course. But you really do see that in go-to-market as well in sales. Like, you put a great seller into a manager position, that's a very different skill set. When you're a successful seller, you have to be, I don't want to say a shark, but in a way, that's the mentality. And then being a manager, you have to support people. You have to stand behind your people. You have to enable them and make sure that they're not blocked in certain ways. And there's a really great mindset shift that happens when you do it well. And I see my most successful managers, like, they already had those skills. So they were already great on soft skills. They're people pleasers, and they're looking to really develop their team. And there's such a contrast with people who are just really great ICs and they performed well, they did all of their tasks, and then suddenly they have to delegate and remove blockers. And it's just interesting to watch.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. The thing about the sales thing as well is, it's true about the sales. You do have to be a certain type of person, because you can approach, like, what fascinates me about sales is you can approach a set of people in the exact same way, and someone will go, oh, thank you, that was so nice, thanks for calling. And the next person will be absolutely so annoyed with you that you've reached out to them. It doesn't have to be a phone call. It could be like, I do a lot of video outreach on
That's
Tinder.
recruiting too.
Exactly. And even though I've done this for years, I'm like, wow, like, I've approached those two people in the exact same way. One of them said thank you, and one of them could not have been more annoyed that I approached them. And I'm like, how does that even work? But yeah, you need to be able to, it's not caring, but you need to be a certain sort of person where you can just
like brush it off, to brush off rejection, and like that doesn't bother you. I personally could never. That was the hardest part about recruitment for me, is disappointing people when you tell them, I'm so sorry you didn't get the job, especially after they invested so much time. And then on top of that, just trying to identify who's the best person and then seeing how they communicate. And that was really hard for me in recruitment. And I was like, all power to you. I cannot do that on my day-to-day.
Yeah, at least you were telling people as well that they didn't get the job, because a lot of recruiters don't even do that. And I find when we give feedback, some people are like, wow, thanks, we weren't expecting to hear from you again. Because I still dread giving you bad news now, but it's surprising how many people go, wow, thanks for feeding back. No one does that. And it's okay, cool.
Important.
It is, yeah.
It helps people. If there's some kind of deficiency, like, yes, there are cases where two people are equal in the role, and it comes down to the hiring manager saying, oh, I want person A or person B. But there are also cases where you have candidates and they could learn from a mistake that they made in the interview that made them less likely to be picked. And I think that's our responsibility in this space, to tell them that so that they can get the next job that they go for.
No, it is. And yeah, like you say, even just letting someone know they're not reject that, even that puts you in the top, I would say, 10 to 5% of recruiters, just letting someone know that they're not moving forward, just, which is ridiculous to say, but it is the truth.
Especially in this market right now where it's so hard to get a job. I've been seeing a ton of people on LinkedIn just talking about how it feels like you're throwing your resume into space and you don't even get a rejection email. Like, it's just silence. And that's such a terrible feeling, because you put in the effort, like, you tailored your resume, you prepared yourself for the role, you looked at the job description, and then to get nothing back, it feels like a failure.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, the market, guys, you've made me want to talk about the market because it is such a crazy market out there. And I put a video out yesterday about the market because I've literally gone, right, I'm going to study economics and actually learn how the market works and how debt cycles work and interest rates and stuff like that.
For you.
Yeah, I put it on my YouTube channel yesterday and I put it on LinkedIn. But long story short, like when interest rates are high, borrowing for companies is really hard. So there's less money circulating around the system. Basically means that everyone's spending less. If everyone's spending less, companies aren't doing it as well. So there's less hiring going on. If interest rates are low and companies can borrow loads and raise loads of cash, hiring, especially like in the tech startup world, happens a lot more. Then you've got like this AI thing thrown in there. Then you had all this overhiring in COVID. Everyone pretty much overhired, so they laid off. You've got all these additional complications in which I think are like making everyone really worried and anxious. Long story short, like it does all work in cycles. It will be okay. But I think if you're on the market now and you have been on the market for 3, 4, 5, 6 months, none of these words probably still make you feel more comfortable.
Yeah, it's a rough time. And being in tech, you see this cycles. When COVID was happening, we were hiring like crazy because you could borrow money at such a low interest rate. In the tech world. That's ideal. That's how you take those risks and make those big bets. But when that shifts and the macroeconomics start affecting how much money you can keep on hand, and then you start diving into that, it makes it really hard to hire folks. Even if you're doing well at this current time, you don't want to take that risk because no one wants to do a layoff. I don't think anyone wakes up and, oh, yay, I get to do layoffs today. That's just not what the goal of a company is.
Yeah, you're right. And then even the companies that are doing well, and I think naturally hiring managers standards go up, and then naturally because there's more people on the market, just by logic, it just makes it harder to get hired. You know what it was like in 2022? It was so candidate led, wasn't it?
It was amazing. Like honestly, from a hiring perspective, it was great. We had so many open roles, and that's satisfying to me, being able to be like, yeah, let's hire 50 software engineers. That's such a great feeling. It's not a great feeling to be like, oh, we have one open headcount for this quarter.
Yeah, definitely. But I think, like I say, it'll come back. But yeah, it's certainly been a rocky period. Going back to the go-to-market piece about getting the manager and the IC right, I think that's so important because I've seen it with go-to-market people. Really good go-to-market people can often earn less as a manager and more as an IC. And if they're really good salespeople, they're probably pretty money motivated. So they've got all that to deal with as well. So I'm imagining the test within the go-to-market space or the sales space, the Enneagram test probably really adds even more value in that scenario.
Absolutely, because you can see what are you actually motivated by, and the good sellers 9 out of 10 times are motivated by money. So you can make that determination. Would you actually be happy in that kind of role, or would you slowly build resentment because you're not making as much money as you used to as an IC?
Yeah, so I presume it gets implemented across existing employees, and then does it get implemented during the hiring process for new employees?
No, so actually there is a rule for IEQ9, which is the organization that gives the Enneagram, that we cannot use this in hiring process. That's to eliminate bias in the hiring process so that people aren't like tending to go towards, oh, I want someone that's motivated by helping people and that's it. Because the idea of Enneagram is that it's your whole person. So yes, you may be a type 2, but that doesn't define you. Like you can still be successful in other areas. You can still be a go-getter and want to drive goals within the org and be able to communicate your wants and needs. So that's really where we make that distinction. But it does help to understand that on a team dynamic level. So I roll it out to teams and I'm saying, okay, so we have this person as a type 1, this person as a type 8. Like, how do we best work well together? And how do you tailor your message to that person so that you can get what you want, you can persuade people, and you can be on the same page? Because ultimately, we all have the same goal. We just want the company to succeed. The place that I feel the most tension is how we get there, and being able to communicate that and get everyone on the same page for how we get there in that journey is probably the most important.
Yeah, definitely. See, when you're remote and when you're operating at scale, like having the information like this, where you're describing at your fingertips, like that is going to, the compound effect of that, I think, is going to be quite positive. It's going to make a big difference.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it really is. Cool. Grace, on flipping back to the market and stuff like that, lastly, I know you've done loads of hiring. Is there any advice you've got for people out there that are struggling, finding it difficult?
I would say lean on AI. It's such a great tool in terms of helping you tailor your resumes. It makes it so much quicker. I remember back in the day before AI, I used to spend hours just tailoring my resume to each job, and that takes so much time. It's exhausting. And like I said, there are times that you just throw it out there and you don't even get a response. So putting all of that time and effort in and getting nothing back is hurtful. Use AI, make it more efficient. And also, this is easier said than done, but try not to take it personally.
Yeah.
It's not about you and your skills right now. It's really just the market is insane. There are a ton of people trying to go for one position, and now that we're remote, you're competing with people all over the world. It's not just your locality anymore. And I find that's really hard to conceptualize. Just be easy on yourself. Give yourself some grace. You're not a failure because you don't have a job right now.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's such a valid point, that personal one, Grace, because I do see frustration. What you're mentioning, I mentioned this on my recent video as well, and it's like, you see a lot of frustration out there. I saw one company hiring, and a candidate commented on it going, why don't you approach some of the people you laid off last year? And it's no, because now you've put that. And look, maybe that company, I can't remember which company it was, and I can't remember what they did, so I'm not making any judgment. But even if that company was in the wrong for whatever they did, which they probably weren't, they probably just got into some difficulties. I'm sure they didn't plan to hire people and lay them off, because that's just an unnecessary expense for a business to incur. So they wouldn't have done it on purpose. But it's now that particular person's commented on that. I'm sure you're the same as me, Grace. One of the things I do when I'm checking out candidates, I look at their LinkedIn, I look at what they're commenting, what they're saying. I want to see what sort of person they are. And we do reference checks, and these things really do matter. And we've got clients that we hire for on a regular basis. So we genuinely really care about how these hires work out long term. And we give really long guarantees with our hires as well. So we really care for more reasons than one. And it's like, if you're commenting like that on a post, what are you going to be like the first time something goes wrong in the job?
It says about how adaptable you are and like how much you're able to handle under pressure, under stress. And like being in this type of environment we are now, there's a lot of pressure and stress in terms of rolling out AI. How well can you develop your skills there? Be open. It's okay. Just breathe before you comment, I think, is something that everyone can take away from this. But I think it's really important to just think about, this is a temporary situation. It will change. It will get better. I understand the frustration. I get it. I've been there. But we really need to just think about, this is temporary. And that's really the message I'd like to put out there.
Yeah, definitely. I just think with the way the world and the market is, we could all need each other. I remember some people, candidates' LinkedIn's in 2021, it was like, don't approach me, leave me alone. And the same people message me now going, oh, Tom, I'm sorry about that. Have you got any vacancies? That's a prime example of how, sometimes it's candidate-led, sometimes it's client-led. I think the world's probably getting more and more volatile, and you just never know when we might all need each other. Long story short, not only is it nice to be nice, but it probably pays to be nice as well.
Absolutely. Isn't it just easier to be nice and like be happy in your day-to-day? There are so many connections that I've made over the course of my career, especially at Grafana, where we scaled from 60 to 1,700 in the time that I was there. It was insane.
Wow.
And there were people that I originally had to reach out to and say, I'm so sorry you didn't get the role. And then a year later, we had more roles. And I reached out to them and I said, okay, we can have more junior roles now. Would you be interested? And they were so thankful that I did that. It's such an emotional process. Looking for a job, but also being a recruiter. You get invested in your clients and you really want them to succeed. You want to see them like join the company, and being in-house, you get to see them grow over their career. And that's honestly what I love about L&D. You get to see someone come in as this like green, fresh person out of college. And then you see them become a manager and start developing other people. It's just such a wonderful cycle to be a part of.
Yeah. That's how we met. because the intro week you'd hired that particular individual, and they had a lot of nice things to say about you, by the way. So
that's
shows,
so
yeah, I know, nice guy. That's a prime example because you've done the job, and it's like people do remember you for it. It makes a difference.
Absolutely. And I remember the recruiters that brought me in, and I have nothing but nice things to say about them because my trajectory in my career completely changed just because they reached out to me. And I think that's so beautiful.
Yeah, it is. Definitely. Great. So I used to basically saying what book has had the most positive impact on your career. It doesn't have to be recruitment related, or it doesn't have to be. It could just be something that's made you the best version of yourself. But it could be book, it could be podcast, it could be anything online you're consuming, anything out there, either recently or over the years that's helped you that could help the listeners.
Absolutely. So I have two. One is personal and one is work related.
Okay.
I'll start with the personal. Lord of the Rings. I am such a big Lord of the Rings nerd. It really did change how I approach things because I'm so ambitious and I think everything has to be done now. And while that's helped me in startups, reading Lord of the Rings, it's a journey. Sam and Frodo, like they take such a long journey to get to Mordor. And I'm sorry I'm nerding out on you, but that taught me to take a second. Your career is a journey. Like you don't have to do everything now. On the work side of things, I love Five Dysfunctions of a Team. I think is so insightful to me, just in terms of team dynamics, how to approach conflict styles and communication. That really did change the way that I teach that kind of topic. There's also just a lot of insights you can take away on how to show up at work and how you deal with conflict and trying to get on the same page with another person.
I really like that. I actually really like your Lord of the Rings example because I can really relate to that because I'm guilty of that so much because I'm always like, we need to do this now. Why isn't this happening? And I've heard someone and it's like, no, it's like, it is a journey. And the whole thing that makes anything valuable is the fact that you do have to wait for it, or the fact that it's challenging, or the fact that it's hard. If everyone just got given like a massive gold bar today, like everyone in the world, then gold wouldn't be very valuable. It's the fact that it's a scarce commodity and it's hard to get your hands on. It's the whole reason that makes it expensive. And it's like the reason that promotion's so good, or the reason that getting that job feels so great.
If you're given that gold bar today, you're going to expect a gold bar tomorrow and the next day. So at least I would. I don't know about others, but it's trying to find that mindset of, okay, this is a growth journey. This isn't a sprint. Like things take time. And if you don't take that time and really develop in one area, and then you're just immediately promoted or thrown into a higher level role, I find that's where you see failure because you weren't given the time to develop in that level.
I think it's so true, Grace. Do you know what it is? I think if you can stick to something and do it properly and slow down to speed up, I just think when you look around, so many people are jumping around from one thing to the next, trying something quickly, not getting the success in their mind quick enough. When the reality that never happens, and they just bounce. And before you know it, like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years, and it's
like playing an instrument. Like you can't just sit down at a piano and immediately play Moonlight Sonata by Beethoven. Like it takes practice and you're going to make mistakes. Sometimes your career is not going to be an upward trajectory. Sometimes you go lateral because it makes sense for you. And sometimes you can even go downward in order to move up. But those people, if you're looking for a VP level role, you have to understand that entry level role first in order to be successful at the top. Because how can you support those people if you don't have that very foundational baseline knowledge?
Yeah, my friend used to describe it as snakes and ladders. You basically just don't fall off the board. As long as you're still on the board, you'll get on a ladder and you'll go up and you'll zoom up again and you'll be fine. I was like, I quite like that.
That's a great analogy for it, yeah.
Another friend of mine said you're never really starting again because if you have a setback, you know so much more that you can get back to where you were quicker if something goes wrong. So even if you lost everything, you're never starting again because you've already done so much in your life that you can quickly get back.
And just being open for those changes. Like when I first started my career, I did not anticipate that I was going to be an L&D manager. Like you expect that normal HR trajectory, which is you become a generalist, which I was for a bit. You move into a business partner position, you move into a manager position, and then you're VP. But being open to those other experiences, you find, oh, wait, I actually like this a lot more. I love my day-to-day. And those parts that like drained you emotionally when you were doing that role are gone. If I wasn't open to that and trying new things and opening up my career in that way, I wouldn't be where I am today. And I think a lot of people have that same kind of thing, because you could be in one part of an org and then you're, let's say, marketing. And then you're like, wait, but I actually really like the skill set of sales. And I think I'd be good at that because I have that marketing background. And then you apply everything you've learned in your career thus far to your job, and it makes you a better contributor.
Yeah, it does, Grace. Yeah, thanks for that. And I think people, when they meet you as well, if you've had a bit of life experience, a few things have happened, and there's been a few ups and a few down and a few battle scars, you can almost, I think those people have always got a bit more character and depth to them, and I think probably get on better. So yeah, all these things happen for a reason.
Yeah, and honestly, it makes you a better communicator too, an active listener. So those skills we were talking about earlier, having those life experiences, it really does shape who you are and how you show up.
Cool. Thank you, Grace. Listen, thanks. It's gone quick. Whenever you have a fellow recruiter on the show, we can talk, can't we? Know how to talk.
We talked about. This has been wonderful. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you, listeners, for paying attention to me.
I enjoyed that. And thank you for your time. I'm looking forward to releasing it. So thanks, Grace.